The World Cup has a serious Paraguay problem because Paraguay did not just eliminate Germany, they broke one of the biggest myths in World Cup history. Germany are supposed to survive these matches. Germany are supposed to stay cold when everyone else panics. Germany are supposed to win penalty shootouts. But Paraguay changed that story forever. After 120 minutes, it was 1-1. Julio Enciso scored for Paraguay. Kai Havertz equalised for Germany. Germany pushed, attacked, and even had a goal disallowed in extra time for a foul on Orlando Gil. But Paraguay survived. And then came penalties, the place where Germany usually becomes Germany. Only this time, Paraguay had the stronger mind. Orlando Gil saved 2 penalties. The shootout reached sudden death, and Jose Canales scored the penalty that sent Paraguay into the round of 16. This was history. Paraguay became the first national team to beat Germany in a World Cup penalty shootout. Germany had not lost an official shootout in 50 years, since the 1976 European Championship. For half a century, German football carried this aura. Pressure does not affect us, penalties belong to us, knockout chaos is our territory. That is why this was bigger than a surprise. Paraguay did not only eliminate a favourite, they destroyed a psychological structure in world football. Germany had history, names and hierarchy, but Paraguay had garra, heart, belief, and the ability to suffer without breaking, because this was Paraguay winning in the most Paraguayan way possible, not through beautiful possession, not through technical superiority, not by dominating Germany. Paraguay won with defensive order, sacrifice, personality, faith and the courage to compete when everyone thought they were dead. That is Paraguayan football at its best. A team that suffers, a team that resists, a team that protects the box like it is defending an entire country, and then strikes when the chance comes. Gustavo Gomez led the defence. Omar Alderete defended with force and personality. Andres Cubas played 120 minutes as the midfield shield. Matias Galarza helped defensively, fought against Germany's attackers, recovered balls, and also provided the cross for Enciso's goal. And Orlando Gil became a national hero. Before this match, he had been questioned. People criticised his communication, his character, and even José Luis Chilavert had been hard on him, but Gil answered on the pitch. He kept Paraguay alive during the match, and in the shootout he became enormous. 2 saves against Germany in a World Cup knockout match. That is how a goalkeeper becomes a legend. And this victory also belongs to Julio Enciso. His goal was not just the 1-0, it was the first goal Paraguay had ever scored in a World Cup knockout match. For decades, Paraguay had a history of resistance, defenders, and competitive teams. But in elimination games, they had never found that goal. Until Enciso, and Enciso represents something different. Rebellion, creativity, dribbling, shooting, personality, chaos. 1 goal and 2 assists in 4 World Cup matches. Before the tournament, 12 goals and 9 assists with Strasbourg. Against Germany, he gave Paraguay history. And this night connects with South Africa, 2010. Back then, Paraguay eliminated Japan on penalties and reached the World Cup quarter-finals for the first time. That was the highest point in Paraguayan World Cup history. But 2026 feels even bigger, because this was not Japan. This was Germany, a 4-time world champion. And there is also revenge. In 2002, Germany eliminated Paraguay 1-0 with a late goal from Oliver Neuville. 24 years later, La Albiroja got their World Cup revenge. And that brings us to Gustavo Alfaro. After the heavy defeat against the United States, Alfaro was destroyed by criticism. They called him a smoke seller. They mocked his speeches, questioned his defensive approach, criticised his call-ups, and Chilavert attacked him. The project looked like it was shaking, but Alfaro did what Alfaro does. He took a wounded group and convinced them they could still compete. He did not build a spectacular team. He built a team that could resist, believe, suffer and win. We have seen this before. With Ecuador, Alfaro took a young generation and taught them to compete without fear. His Ecuador was not always brilliant in attack, but it was organised, emotionally strong, and difficult to break. Now with Paraguay, he is repeating the pattern. He took a criticised team, a wounded team, a team without massive expectations, and gave it order, identity, and belief. In Ecuador, Alfaro built character. In Paraguay, he is building history. And that is why this team is dangerous. Yes, Paraguay defend. Yes, they suffer. Yes, they can spend long stretches without the ball. But they also have players who can hurt you. Enciso is the main weapon. Mauricio brings left-footed creativity and already has a World Cup goal. Miguel Almiron brings speed, experience and transition threat. Ramon Sosa can change games when Paraguay need more attack. Isidro Peter gives them a box striker. and Diego Gomez gives them energy, arrival, and midfield connection. This is not a team full of superstars, but it is a team full of roles. A heroic goalkeeper, centre-backs who defend like their lives depend on it, midfielders who run until their legs disappear, forwards who wait for one chance and attack it with everything, and a coach who knows how to turn criticism into fuel. Paraguay did not eliminate Germany by trying to be something else. They eliminated Germany by becoming Paraguay again, by defending, by suffering, by believing, by taking Germany to the place where everyone thought Germany could not lose, and winning there. This might not be the end of the story. It might be the beginning of a new surprise. Because Paraguay did not arrive here by accident. Paraguay arrived here because they remembered who they are, and now the World Cup has a serious Paraguay problem. To understand why Paraguay eliminating Germany feels so powerful, you first need to understand what Paraguay means in World Cup history. Paraguay are not just another South American team, they have tradition. 2 Copa America titles in 1953 and 1979, an Olympic silver medal in Athens 2004. And a clear World Cup identity. Their story began in 1930 at the first World Cup. Paraguay did not advance, but they beat Belgium 1-0 after losing to the United States. In 1950 they competed again, drawing 2-2 with Sweden, who would finish third before losing to Italy. One of their first great statements came before the 1958 World Cup, when Paraguay destroyed Uruguay 5-0 in Asunción during qualifying. That was an early sign that Paraguay could hurt giants. At the tournament, they did not advance, but they competed. A wild 7-3 defeat against Just Fontaine's France. Then came a long wait. Paraguay did not return until Mexico 1986, and that tournament changed their history. After 28 years away, La Albiroja finally advanced past the group stage. They beat Iraq 1-0, drew 1-1 with Mexico in a match remembered for Roberto Gato Fernandez saving Hugo Sanchez's penalty, and drew 2-2 with Belgium thanks to Roberto Cabañas' double. They lost 3-0 to England in the round of 16, but the message was clear. Paraguay could compete in World Cup knockout football. In France 1998, that image became even stronger, with José Luis Chilavert as the symbol and a brutal defence in front of him. They drew 0-0 with Bulgaria.
The middle, here's Cardoso, onside.
Drew 0-0 with Spain.
It's a little ball into the area, chance for Paraguay!
And beat Nigeria 3-1. Then they faced France, the hosts, the future world champions. Paraguay resisted for more than 100 minutes and only fell in the 114th minute because of Laurent Blanc's historic golden goal. That match defined Paraguay internationally. Uncomfortable, defensive, heroic. In 2002, Paraguay qualified for a second straight World Cup for the first time. Against Slovenia, they were losing 1-0 and playing with 10 men after Carlos Paredes was sent off. But they came back to win 3-1. With 2 goals from Nelson Cuevas and another from Jorge Campos. In the round of 16, they met Germany. Paraguay played one of their best matches, but lost 1-0 because of Oliver Neuville's goal in the 88th minute. That detail matters now, because 24 years later, Paraguay finally got their World Cup revenge. In 2006, Paraguay reached a 3rd straight World Cup, but did not survive the group. They lost 1-0 to England. Lost 1-0 to Sweden. And closed with a 2-0 win over Trinidad and Tobago. Then came their highest point before 2026, South Africa 2010. With Gerardo Martino, Paraguay produced the best World Cup in their history. They drew 1-1 with Italy.
Now they retreat.
The defending champions beat Slovakia 2-0. And drew 0-0 with New Zealand to finish top of the group. In the round of 16, they eliminated Japan on penalties after a 0-0 draw. For the first time ever, Paraguay reached the World Cup quarter-finals. Then they faced Spain, the future champions. Oscar Taquara Cardozo had a penalty to put Paraguay ahead, but Iker Casillas saved it. Justo Villar also saved a penalty from Xabi Alonso, but David Villa scored in the 83rd minute. Paraguay went out, but left with the best World Cup campaign in their history. That 2010 team showed what Paraguay could be when they imposed their identity: defence, order, suffering, set pieces, great goalkeepers and emotional strength. But after that high point came the break. Paraguay spent 16 years without playing a World Cup. The team that had been present in 1998, 2002, 2006 and 2010 disappeared from the World Cup map. Paraguay stopped being the uncomfortable opponent nobody wanted to face and entered a period of frustration, failed qualifiers and lost identity. And that is where Gustavo Alfaro enters. When Alfaro took over in August 2024, Paraguay had only 5 points from 18 in qualifying. and were coming from a heavily criticised period after Daniel Garnero's exit. They looked vulnerable, irregular, and emotionally broken. Then Alfaro arrived with a clear idea.
Hizo siempre Paraguay, con una selección que daba orgullo, que sabía que iba a pelear hasta el final, que sabía que iba a pelear por todo, y eso es algo que lo tenemos que hacer entre todos.
That sentence explains the project. His debut already showed the change, a 0-0 draw against Uruguay at the Centenario. Then came a win over Brazil, a draw in Quito against Ecuador, victories over Venezuela and Argentina, and a point in the altitude of El Alto. In 12 qualifying matches, Alfaro had 6 wins, 5 draws, and only 1 defeat. Paraguay conceded just 7 goals, the second best defence in CONMEBOL, behind Ecuador, and scored 13. He had done something similar before with Ecuador, a young, organised, emotionally strong team that competed in Qatar 2022, beat Qatar, challenged the Netherlands, and came close to the round of 16. With Paraguay, he repeated the pattern. He took a broken team and gave it structure, discipline, and confidence. He organised what already existed. That is the great change. Paraguay started to feel like Paraguay again. Uncomfortable, intense, solid, pragmatic, convinced. They qualified 6th in CONMEBOL, helped by the expanded format, yes, but backed by real improvement in results, performance, and identity. And now, after eliminating Germany, that transformation has reached another level. Paraguay are not just back, they are frightening the World Cup. Paraguay are dangerous again, because Paraguay remembered who they are. Paraguay's defensive strength is real, but it is not perfect. The 4-1 defeat against the United States was the accident. The day everything Paraguay normally does well completely broke. After that, against Turkey, Australia and Germany, their identity returned. Low block, sacrifice, strong centre-backs, a decisive goalkeeper, and the ability to suffer without collapsing. Against the United States, Paraguay were physically, tactically, and emotionally beaten. They could not escape the high press. They did not defend like Paraguay, and they lost the duels they usually survive. The clearest example was Balogun's goal. Tillman found the pass, Balogun attacked the diagonal, cut inside against Gustavo Gomez, and finished into the top corner. That play exposed everything, but that match became the slap Paraguay needed. That day, Paraguay did not close spaces, did not win duels, and did not resist pressure. But that is exactly why the rest of their World Cup has more value, because Alfaro corrected the path. Against Turkey, Paraguay recovered who they were. They won 1-0 with an early goal from Matias Galarza. Then Almiron was sent off before halftime, and Paraguay had to play the entire second half with 1 man less. Turkey finished with 78% possession and 32 shots, but they did not score. Paraguay had something more important: order, patience, and a defence that knew how to suffer. After Almiron's red card, Alfaro reacted quickly. He took off Peter and brought on Bobadilla to reinforce midfield. Paraguay dropped deeper, closed the centre, and accepted the match they had to play. That was tactical clarity, not panic. A team understanding that the priority was protecting the result. And when the block finally allowed a clear chance, Orlando Gil appeared. In the 88th minute, Usun was left alone inside the box after a pass from the right, and Gil reacted brilliantly. The play was later ruled offside, but the response mattered, because when Paraguay's wall cracked, Gil was there. That became even clearer in the group stage. Even after conceding 4 against the United States, Gil finished the group with 2 clean sheets and 13 saves in 3 matches. He was already becoming the last wall. Against Australia, Paraguay showed another side of survival. They played with a back 5, Maidana and Cáceres as wing-backs, with Alderete, Gustavo Gomez and Velázquez as centre-backs. The draw was enough to qualify, so Alfaro prioritised not giving anything away. Paraguay were not brilliant, they were pragmatic. Australia found a dangerous moment late, when Boss created space with a feint and shot close to the post. But Paraguay did not lose control, did not open up, and did not fall into anxiety. They understood the situation. If losing meant going home, then Paraguay were not going to gift the match to anyone. And then came Germany, the night that confirmed everything. Paraguay gave up possession, defended in a low block, and forced Germany to circulate without finding the final pass. Germany had the names, the hierarchy, and the ball, but Paraguay had emotional control. Gustavo Gomez led the defence. Alderete gave the team physical presence. Canale and Velázquez helped defend crosses, long balls and set pieces. Cubas, Galarza, Bobadilla and Diego Gomez protected the central zone. And Galarza, especially against Germany, looked like a complete player, recovering, holding the ball, not panicking under pressure, and also contributing an attack. Then Gil became the hero. In the 77th minute, Wirtz crossed from the left. Havertz won the header, and Gil produced a massive save. Germany had found one of their most dangerous formulas, but Paraguay had a goalkeeper capable of keeping the game alive. In extra time, Germany scored through Tar, but the goal was ruled out for a foul on Gil. Then Gil appeared again on a set piece, reacting to a header from Waldemar Anton, and in the penalty shootout, he stopped Havertz. And Volta made. That is how Paraguay eliminated Germany. Not by dominating them, by surviving them. But this story is not only defensive, it is emotional. Julio Enciso had been injured on June 5th. When the debut against the United States arrived, he had completed only one full training session, the day before the match. And still he started every single game Paraguay played at this World Cup. Against Germany, he scored the goal of his life. Then, in the 57th minute, he had to come off injured again, but nobody should doubt he will fight to be ready for the round of 16. Because playing a World Cup has been the dream of his entire life. After the historic qualification, Enciso broke down crying like a child. He was inconsolable. He could not believe what he had just lived. 1 year ago, Enciso lost his grandfather, the man who always believed in him. He could not be there physically, but Julio carries his surname on the shirt to keep him with him. His grandfather once told him, "You are going to take the Enciso name to the World Cup." And Julio is doing it. In his first World Cup, he can say he scored against Germany and helped eliminate the 4-time world champions. Paraguay's best defensive strength is not just sitting deep, it is knowing how to suffer with an idea. Against the United States, it broke.
Down the right side of the defence again.
Against Turkey, it was rebuilt.
Lose and still make the last.
Against Australia, it was managed. Against Germany, it became history. Paraguay do not defend out of fear. They defend because that is where Paraguay feel like Paraguay. In the duel, in the box, in the loose ball, in resistance. And now in the dreams of a kid from Caguazu who never stopped believing.